Back in the 1990s, Sega created Sonic the Hedgehog, a character that could go toe-to-toe with Nintendo's Mario. They also did some other stuff you've probably heard of. But Sonic is a character whose career has kind of fallen by the wayside as of late. His recent outings could be described as awful. That's one word you could use. But his classic games, those original games on the Sega Genesis, they remain to be some of the best games of the 16-bit era. And Sega's done a halfway decent job of preserving them. But what if I were to tell you that the best version of Sonic the Hedgehog 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD weren't actually on any home console, not even the Sega Genesis, not on Sonic Jam on the Saturn, nothing. What if I were to tell you that they were on a device that people really wouldn't think would work for a Sonic game, or any classic 16-bit game? What if I were to tell you that those best games are actually on mobile devices? Now I know what you're thinking. There's no way they could turn a device like this into a viable gaming machine for a character like Sonic the Hedgehog. And I kind of believed that for a long time myself, because that's what Sega did. They released shoddy, emulated ports of the original Sonic the Hedgehog games on the iOS and Android markets, and they were awful. Much like the awful ports that they put on systems like Xbox Live. Sonic the Hedgehog 1, 2, and CD are some of my favorite games on Sega's 16-bit wonder, the Genesis. A lot of kids like me poured hours into these games, and though the Genesis is able to stand very much so on its own without Sonic, his influence on the console is hard to deny. Over the years, these games were ported to newer systems, but none of these versions really felt like what I thought I wanted, a remastering of those original games. I think I was the most disappointed by this when I downloaded Sonic off Xbox 360 Live Arcade, and for some reason, expected the game to be presented in a widescreen, high-definition format. It was, but not in the fashion that I'd hoped for. This ugly border, errors in the music and graphics, and the general feelings of versions like this just don't feel worth the money in my mind. Even the Steam versions of Sonic 1 and 2 are just decent emulated copies of the games, and outside offering the ability to save, these ports don't do much for me. They're still good games, don't get me wrong, but one would hope more care would be taken into preserving one of Sega's biggest series. Now, Sega had originally put emulated versions of the Sonic games on mobile devices as well, slapping a crummy virtual D-pad onto an already crummy emulator. The controls were bad, the game didn't look great, and Sega let this go for years, though players didn't have too much else to go with to get their Sonic fix on the go. Enter Sonic Retro user and fan game creator Christian Whitehead, known to many in the Sonic fan game community as the Taxman. In 2009, Whitehead released a video of Sonic CD running on an iOS device, showing the game using touch-based controls in a widescreen format. Though the game was only a concept at the time, it was built using Whitehead's own retro engine, meaning the game wasn't just an emulation, but instead a sort of rebuild of the original game specifically for a modern device. Long story short, Sega, instead of shutting down the project like they very well could have, contracted Whitehead to work on fully developing the game. And in 2011, Sonic CD was released on mobile devices and consoles, completely remade using Taxman's retro engine, a real victory for the fan game community. Sonic CD's remake was eventually followed up by updates to the old Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 games already out on mobile devices, each in 2013. And it was also made using Taxman's retro engine. With Christian Whitehead and other fan game creators on board, these updates gave the original Sonic the Hedgehog and its primary Genesis sequel the retro engine treatment, featuring many of the same improvements seen in Sonic CD and even some secrets and additional content. But we'll get into that in a minute. You can buy Sonic 1, Sonic 2, and Sonic CD all remastered on pretty much any mobile device right now, and each plays even better than your nostalgia for the blue blur may recall. The biggest change, at least on the surface level, to these games is their amazing facelift. Fans of sharp, clean pixels will love how crisp the sprites look in these games, and the music has been mixed to give a much fuller, engaging sound. There's also not really any lag from having too many objects on screen at once. Some sprites have been changed a little bit to look a little bit more realistic, and the game keeps up with a standard 60 frames per second, which makes for an incredibly smooth experience. Of course, each of these Sonic titles has been adapted for widescreen displays, and not just by stretching the graphics. When coupled with the extremely clear presentation of the game, it's almost impossible for me to even consider going back to the Genesis originals, even on a CRT television, after experiencing this update. And really, that's just on the visual improvements alone. Seeing Sonic in widescreen doesn't actually change the game's sense of speed all that much, which is amazing, but instead allows the player to better appreciate the level. You're able to see just enough of what's ahead that Sonic fans who haven't memorized every pixel of the game aren't blindsided by enemies and obstacles. Here's a few more comparison shots between versions of the games to better illustrate some of these differences and upgrades. Quite honestly, the fact that these games were in widescreen alone was reason enough for me to be interested, but at a $2.99 price tag, I had hoped the controls would be better. And they were. So this is by far going to be the main point of contention about this video. Touchscreen devices get a lot of flack for gaming due to the lack of tactile response. When you're playing a game like Sonic, you want to be able to rock the D-pad a little bit, feel the push of the buttons, and not have your inputs obstruct the view of the game, all things a touchscreen removes from the experience. The Genesis controller is one of my favorite controllers of all time, and the original versions of these titles on mobile devices featured what I would probably call some of the worst control systems of all time, especially for mobile devices. But thanks to the retro engine and just a little bit of extra effort, Sega has managed to work in a surprisingly functional virtual input. It plays the same for Sonic CD and Sonic 1 and 2, despite the graphic being a little different, but the improved sensitivity to the input removes a lot of the all-or-nothing feeling I get from other virtual D-pad games. I know it's a little hard to trust me with this. Virtual controls on the large scale have been the main reason for people to object to even considering playing these types of games on mobile devices, if not trying a mobile game altogether. The extra effort Sega has gone through to make this control feel actually tight is amazing. And if you're someone who owns some Bluetooth controllers for your phone, these Sonic games work out extremely well with them, and on certain devices, you can send your gameplay to a TV or computer monitor and really take in those visual improvements. Man, modern technology rocks. So the presentation rocks, the controls are surprisingly on point, but what else do these games offer? Sonic CD includes several extra goodies like artwork, the ability to play as Tails, and you can even switch between the Japanese and US soundtracks for the game pretty quickly, which is totally awesome. The special zones have been cleaned up significantly, and some objects in certain zones have been changed just a little bit to improve the experience. But the experience is still very much Sonic CD. The time-traveling action has really never been better than this experience. And if you want to experience a remastered Sonic game but don't want to try it on a mobile device, this version of Sonic CD is actually out on other services like Steam. The other two Sonic games fit together a little bit more closely, with matching menus and options. Sonic 1 includes the ability to spin dash, though you can turn this off if you're a bit of a Sonic purist, and by meeting certain objectives, you can play as Sonic and Tails, Tails alone, or even Sonic's rival Knuckles. That's something I still haven't been able to completely wrap my mind around, being able to play as Knuckles in the first Sonic game, but these characters are also able to access new areas exclusive to this release by attempting to fly or climb to areas that would have no reason to have paths in the original game. Tails can carry Sonic or fly on his own, and Knuckles of course has his traditional gliding ability, which makes some portions of the game significantly easier, though Sonic's Spin Dash can do that as well. Sonic 2, my personal favorite of these mobile games, includes many of Sonic 1's changes as well, since both games run on an updated version of Whitehead's retro engine from Sonic CD. As you'd expect for Sonic 2, Tails and Knuckles are fully playable as well, with Tails still able to carry Sonic without the need for a second player, which sadly is not a feature in this mode. There does exist a great 2P versus mode, allowing you to connect with friends over the internet to race each other in all the stages of the game, though I've yet to find a random challenger who didn't just do this. Sonic 2 is a lot of fun regardless of the version you play, but Sega did a lot more for this version than the other two by recreating Hidden Palace Zone, a level that was supposed to appear in the original game. The name may have been reused in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, but was not really a full level. Instead, this zone serves as a one-act romp through a fully designed new level set with unique badniks, artwork, and a brand new boss. I won't spoil how to find it, but you won't encounter it in the normal stage progression, and it isn't accessible in the stage select or time attack modes without finding it in one of the game's zones. Here's a hint though. It's now a lot harder to get permanently stuck in a certain level in this version. Speaking of time attack, all these games feature with leaderboards and records, but Sonic 2 adds an additional feature that's only in this version, a boss attack mode. I've always liked the bosses in Sonic CD the most, I think, but Sonic 2's bosses are a lot more fun than their Sonic 1 counterparts, though some are a little too easy. This boss attack mode features limited rings and throws you at each boss in the game one right after the other. It's actually decently challenging since it can be hard to hold onto your rings after a while. It's a great inclusion and it's a lot of fun to try out. Both Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 also include some fun extras only accessible in the game configuration menu, which allows you to go through stage select, change the player character, adjust the speed cap, or my personal favorite, using items from different games. Do you want to play Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 with the elemental shields from Sonic 3, or use the insta-shield from that game? These are the versions of the games for you. The only trick is that you can only do this in no save mode, which is totally fun, and the shields all work exactly like they do from Sonic 3, which gives me hope that Taxman can get Sega to let him work on Sonic 3 and Knuckles remastering here soon. I honestly can't stress enough how awesome these remakes are. By not sticking with the standard emulation dump they had before, Sega has crafted, in my mind, the definitive Sonic the Hedgehog experience on mobile devices. With that in mind, it's funny for me to go and play a game like Sonic 4 on my iPhone now, because the controls, presentation, and really everything else about the game pales in comparison. Sonic 4 alone has its own issues we don't have time to get into here, but it is easily a forgettable game, at least on mobile devices, because it doesn't even play or look remotely as good as these classics. Now, Sonic CD is on other platforms like Steam and other services in this wonderful high-definition remake. But Sonic 1 and Sonic 2, as of right now, are only available on the mobile markets. Some devices you can use a real controller to play them, but that touchscreen control system actually works really well. And all the extra bonuses and hidden content and secrets and cheats and Easter eggs and everything like that just make these ports excellent. And the $2.99 price tag for each version honestly doesn't feel that much of an investment, considering the fact that these are classic games that a lot of us grew up with and a lot of us appreciate. And Sega's done an excellent job of remastering them on a device that we really wouldn't think would work out very well for a game like this, but turns out being the best way to play these games.